So in 1958, William Higginbotham unintentionally created the first video game. He worked for the National Lab of Instruments at Brookhaven as sort of a tech purveyor. What he did was he demonstrated new technology and new electronics that were constantly coming out. So one of the ideas he had was he had a new team, and they had just gotten a new analog computer, which had an oscilloscope, I think is how it's called. I might be mispronouncing that. But what he did was he noticed that there was a bouncing ball going across the screen, and he actually tweaked with it a little bit, having worked with electronics and radar instruments in the past. And what he did was he made it to where the bouncing ball had two lines that would move up and down the sides of the screen, and using knobs on the side of the analog computer, he could bounce the ball between them, and it would pass through the side of the screen, and then it would come back in the middle. There was no score or anything that was generated by this. It was just a fun little game he created for the display of people who were coming to see new technology. This went on to inspire the very first advertised and technically created video game, which was Pong by Atari in 1972. Their innovation and Mr. Higginbotham's creation led to the start of a massive, massive industry that has earned over $135 billion last year alone, which is almost 3 times more than what Apple earned last year. Which is quite an accomplishment, I have to say. Now, I didn't earn as much as Samsung, but they're making it. So I'm going to be talking about some of the pros and cons of playing video games and the advantages and disadvantages it'll have on you in society and as a person. So I'm going to start off with some of the pros, and I might lead into some of the cons as well afterwards. So the first pro that I studied and found was that video games often help with mental illness and stress due to the relaxation. You're sitting down, you're able to put your mind in one area and sort of let it all go for a little bit, which is quite innovative for something that, sitting down and being kind of lazy doing. But it's really awesome that it's able to do that. The second thing is that scientists have found, according to the Scientific American blog, that Tetris has helped reduce PTSD in some people. By sitting down and using their minds to solve problems, it actually helps take their minds away, and that long-term memory actually helps. It helps the long-term memory fade away a little bit, which is awesome because we definitely need to help trying to solve and cure PTSD, help veterans and anyone else who might be suffering from an accident in the past. The third thing is that it also helps with hand-eye coordination. When you're looking at a screen and you're trying to, press buttons or press keys on a keyboard, it definitely helps in, creating that work with your mind, not looking at your hands while you're doing this. That way, you could write better if you're trying to look at something like, for example, if you were at college and your professor was writing something and you're trying to copy notes, but you're trying to see exactly what he's saying because he might erase it the next second, who knows. So the next thing that it helps with is that it also helps lengthen attentive spans and memory. The way it does this is because if you're sitting there for such a long time and you're focusing on just the one thing, it actually helps you focus in other aspects of your life, according to some studies. Now, according to other studies, it actually does the opposite, where it reduces memory span and attention span. For the opposite reason being that if you're focusing only on that, then you only want to think about that. But I'll get to that in a minute. The fourth pro that I have down here, according to BBC, video games can also help with dyslexia. And this is because when you have something popping up on the screen, flashing, sort of like constantly going, you sort of need to be able to read it fast and efficiently if you want to be better or play the game. Due to competitive nature, a lot of people with dyslexia have found that video games actually help them focus a little bit. The final pro that I have listed here is that it definitely helps with problem-solving skills. And the way it does this is by, say, a good example is Tetris. You're trying to figure out how to work all the pieces together. And you have to think fast and quick about it, which in the end helps you, if you play that enough, go between problems and just solving them over time. Now the first negative I have here is the biggest one, which is going to be addiction. When you play video games or sit down too often on video games, then you tend to become addicted, and it can cause a lot of issues for you. Last year and this year, there was many cases where kids were actually reported to therapy and withdrawals due to a specific game that was released, Fortnite. After the summer ended this year, after the summer ended last year, a lot of kids who had been playing Fortnite all summer actually ended up going through withdrawal symptoms. They were angry, they were upset, they didn't want to do anything because all they wanted to do was play the game that they had been on. Which leads me to my next problem, which is anger problems, also known as rage quitting in some cases. Games often don't have very big consequences when you actually do quit, which teaches you that you can just quit whenever you want, which isn't necessarily a good thing in life at all. Because if if you quit just when you lose, then you're not going to ever win. The third issue that video games present is hygiene. If you're sitting down and focused on doing something for so long, like the video games, oftentimes you forget basic necessities: brushing your teeth, putting on deodorant, showering. Nasty. No one wants that. The final con with video games is that they are a very expensive hobby. A good gaming computer can cost anywhere between $800 to $1,200, with games themselves also costing anywhere between $20 to $60. Consoles can cost $400, and the games still cost $60 each, which, if you add that up, can cost you a lot of money over time. So to conclude, video games, while they have a lot of advantages and disadvantages, it's all depending on the person exactly. I wouldn't recommend playing more than 2 to 3 hours a day, just because it's not necessarily good for you to sit down longer than that, but the advantages for that duration can outweigh the disadvantages if you only play during that amount of time. Thank you.